The allure of psychotic TV mass murderers has been on my mind for a while now. Tons of people around the world are drawn to more and more of these types of characters and their worlds. The viewers know that the characters are murderers and thieves, and they should not be rooting for them. And yet, something about these characters almost tricks the viewers into being on their side. But what? What is it that makes the viewer turn a blind eye to their deeds? What is it that makes these characters so appealing? And what does it say about the kind of viewer that enjoys these characters and their shows? Even by just looking on the surface level, it's not hard to understand why millions are drawn to such characters. These characters have a certain look. The smoking, the drinking, the wardrobe, the hair or lack thereof. Even the less stylish characters have at least one distinct and recognizable article of clothing. Tony Soprano's style might seem less noticeable at first glance, but your perspective changes when you realize that it's a standard trope for the Italian mobster to be dressed a certain way, whether it be a tracksuit or an Italian pinstripe double-breasted fitted jacket with trousers. You know what kind of gangster you're dealing with by the way he's dressed. Some Italian mafiosos did not care at all about their appearance. Others, however, like Tom Buscetta, were in fact so well dressed that Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana used him and his style as inspiration for certain looks in their menswear collection for spring 1994. But of course, it's not just their clothing or other accessories that make up the look. It's their mannerisms, their voices, their intonations, their posture, their hand gestures and their walk. Additionally, the look is just their initial presentation. It goes much deeper than that. They're calm, collected, smart, meticulous, wise and charismatic. Combining all of that makes for a very cool character. The initial hook gets you to spend time with these characters and get to know them. You learn what they like, how do they react to misfortune, what makes them laugh, how do they express anger and how do they manage it, how do they conduct business and so on. It feels like you're getting closer to these characters and you want to get even closer. People really want to be like Thomas Shelby, as evidenced by the endless videos and articles on how to be exactly like him. From his clothing to his way of thinking. People want to be Thomas Shelby, even if for a short period of time. They want to think like he does, they want to feel like he does, they want to act like he does. I am sure that a lot of it is also sexual, but I'll sidestep that for today. Even if you've never seen an episode, you can tell what kind of man Tommy is just from a picture. He's one of those real men I keep hearing about.
In media, usually men like this are presented to us as real men from the get-go. What made them real men, what hardened them, has already happened. Almost exclusively the reason for these strong men is past trauma, which is sometimes revealed later in flashback sequences. It is done this way as to not waste time and get to the good part, the part where he already is the strong silent type. He is the way that he is because of all the fucked up shit that happened to him. After so much trauma, what else could he do but live a life of crime? This trauma is presented to us in many different ways. It could be war, abusive childhood, strong influence by family members who also lead a crime-ridden life, or sudden health issues that slowly change the priorities and the morality of the protagonist. This victimization of the character is one of three main strategies used to trick us, the audience, into sympathy.
Fictional TV drama used three strategies to ensure that the viewer maintains an overall positive emotional attitude towards the protagonist: victimization of the character, the perversity of the antagonists, and the presence of family.
In other words, the character was strongly influenced by something that was not his fault, which made him what he is now. The character, even though objectively a bad person, is still not as bad as his enemies. If the protagonist is evil, his enemies are more evil. If the protagonist is brutal, his enemies are even more brutal. If the protagonist, you get the point. Last but not least, the character has to have a family for two reasons. One, to humanize him further, and two, to use it as another justification for his wrongdoings. Which is not his fault anyway, because his enemies are even worse. But it's not his fault even more because of the trauma he experienced. These types of shows use one or more of these three strategies often, so that you don't forget why he does all these evil deeds, to whom it's being done, and for whose sake.
The protagonists have to cyclically revive the sympathy we feel for them, despite the sins they commit, so that these conflicts can multiply and the story can expand over the course of several seasons.
It has to be constantly brought up that the protagonist has a family so that he can keep getting away with evil. Hey, Walter White just killed two guys, but look at this cute baby. Yes, he did just get his partner killed, but look at what Gustavo just did, and don't forget, he's doing all of this for his family. Besides tricks used by writers to make us feel sorry for thieves and murderers, there are other reasons we enjoy them and their stories so much. Grace Blair for Psychology Today writes,
"Watching crime television and murder mysteries is kind of like witnessing a car crash. It's hard to look at, but it's also hard to look away. There is a level of disgust that we experience while watching or listening to these stories of violence and terror, and yet we keep coming back for more."
Grace is talking more about true crime here, but I think what a lot of people don't realize is that it would apply to a TV show like Peaky Blinders, the characters in which are murderers, even serial murderers, but in spite of this, I do not for a second experience this disgust that she talks about. Not only do I not want to turn away from the car crash, I wish there were more. Because of the aforementioned tricks, we don't see it as murder, we see it as self-defense or an unavoidable and necessary evil. That's why we continue to sympathize with these characters even after the atrocities they've committed.
TV fiction, given its serialized nature, is better equipped to develop a structure of sympathy.
We follow these characters basically from the start, when their empires are either non-existent or in their infancy. We witness them expand their empires by any means necessary, but we still empathize with them. The emotional toll we as the audience go through with each episode and then each season makes it feel almost as if we're in this together. Seeing something being built seemingly out of nothing, seeing the progress the characters are making, being there since episode 1, witnessing the empire grow each season bigger and bigger and bigger starts to feel almost as a shared accomplishment. Because of their victimization, however, we disregard or look the other way when it's repeatedly shown that these are serial abusers, cheaters, or ruthless murderers. And as time goes on, we start to let more and more things slide. That feeling of sympathy slowly turns into something else.
We might consider sympathy to be more flexible and protean than allegiance, and its causality more diffuse and unpredictable. We might consider allegiance, our allying ourselves with, focusing on, rooting for a character, to be a relationship established only after appropriate narrative and character development.
Simply put, we go from feeling sorry for them and in turn not assigning blame directly for any crimes, to feeling connected and even rooting for them and their crimes. This allegiance, the feeling of being loyal to them or even being one of them, is an interesting feeling. Suppose you just watched a particularly violent scene from one of these shows. Now, place yourself in a similar situation. How would you react? Well, you probably wouldn't do anything nearly as violent. And that's the point. Your conscience, your guilt, your fear would stop you sooner or later. But the show is not about you. That'd be a pretty boring show. The whole point is that these people are different to you, but kind of similar. You connect to these things, but not these things. You don't really understand some of their actions, but you pretend to. You pretend you understand these psychopaths. My favorite quote on the subject comes from director-producer Matthew Nix.
The thing about psychopathy, at least as we usually represent it in fiction, is that a character without conscience is both an effective monster and a form of wish fulfillment. We all have a sense for what would be possible if we were freed from the constraints of guilt, fear, and shame.
It's almost like we're living out some of our fantasies through these characters. A guilt-free conscience will get you ahead in life, but at what cost? Us being like them and wanting to be more like them is what makes us tune in every week and for years to come. But it's not just the characters that allure us, it's their worlds as well.
An extremely interesting type of content that I discovered not so long ago has to do with usually small business owners or employees that talk, or more often show, what exactly is it that fills up their day at the liquor store, sandwich shop, bakery, etc. Their top performing videos are usually ones discussing or comparing finances. But the others, the ones discussing day-to-day business, do well too. I have a feeling that pretty much everyone at this point has seen this side hustle type video, where someone has a bunch of vending machines everywhere and they go around collecting the revenue. Some of these creators branch out and make skits to further promote their business or just for the fun of it, and that's fine, just not my cup of tea. I specifically enjoy those that just talk about what is it that they do all day long. I started thinking about why is this type of content so interesting to me, and here's what I came up with.
As someone who works for someone else, seeing other people get close to or even successfully achieve their dreams is kind of inspiring. I too have many business ideas that I'm doing absolutely nothing about, but by following some of these creators I can get a glimpse into what's it like to have my very own candy shop. I can get a feel for what's it like to have my very own business without absolutely any effort or risk. Besides, if you view the videos from a channel like this chronologically, you can see the evolution of the business video by video. You can see all the progress they've done. Some creators will show you the negative things as well, the failures and the shortcomings. Now, I completely understand that I have absolutely nothing to do with this business, but wouldn't it be cool if it were mine?
What I've come to realize is that, amongst other similarities, these videos and the shows are about running a business. They present the day-to-day of the business as well as long-term strategies. The businesses are slowly but surely evolving. Watching the Shelby Company Limited grow, watching Tony Soprano start officially running things in New Jersey, watching Walter White go from cooking in a mobile home to a top-notch lab feels good. These are not my accomplishments, but I too am sort of proud of these characters for getting so far. Their progress is a really interesting thing to witness, and again, I'm not a part of any of these businesses, but wouldn't it be cool if I was? The worlds these characters have surrounded themselves with are incredibly interesting. Besides them running their business and doing spectacularly, the thing that differentiates and elevates the shows above the rest of the content I mentioned is crime.
If you operate outside of the law, and especially for a long time, you must be clever. You must be doing something right all this time. Your business is only growing despite the fact that there are people out to get you. Your competitors, who instead of trying to undercut you or use sneaky marketing tactics to outsell you, might try and outright kill you. Besides that, you also have to worry about law enforcement. All of these things combined make up why I think these stories and their protagonists are so incredibly fascinating. It's also the thing I mentioned earlier. These characters are similar to us on some level, but completely different on another.
For example, if we take a closer look at The Sopranos, it clearly illustrates how much of their work politics are similar to that of a 9-to-5, worrying about deadlines and promotions and setting up Christmas parties. Of course, this shows, to avoid creating the feeling that your job might be similar to that of a soprano, will throw a dead stripper at you here and there. The similarities are few, but they are. Obviously, I'm not saying that working in an office is the exact same as being in waste management. I mean, have you seen their HR department? These guys are really good at conflict resolution, and don't even get me started on the inclusive work environment. They do have office drama, but it's a much more cutthroat world they live in. It's a dog-eat-dog world. This world with constant danger to their lives, a world in many senses much less tolerant than ours. Thinking about it clearly, I wouldn't want to be a part of any of that.
But what happens if you strip the characters off their character, if you remove all the manipulation? What you're left with are cheaters, abusers, thieves and murderers. A news story about a murderer dragpin wouldn't automatically make you empathetic, mostly because it wouldn't go into much detail about the dragpin's personal life or struggles. It's a news clip. It talks about what the person allegedly or evidently did and how much time they're looking at, and thus you judge them accordingly. In any case, my point is, at the end of it all, is that we do understand that even these characters that are based on real-life people are still fictional, and that's why we judge them differently. Thankfully, there aren't any real-life examples of drug lords or murderers being glorified in pop culture.
Walter White and Thomas Shelby are both based on real-life people. Even Tony Soprano is said to be based on Vincent Palermo, who was the de facto boss of a New Jersey crime family. But the differences between the characters and their real-life counterparts are significant enough that it'd be more accurate to say that the characters are almost completely fictional. But my question now is, why are people drawn to the real-life monsters, individuals who don't have a movie or a book or a show made after them? Well, it's kind of the same story all over again. That quote by Grace I mentioned earlier applies way more this time, but even without it, even though these are real people, the same three strategies are used a lot. Take a famous serial killer that any streaming service got their hands on recently, and you realize that you know a lot about their traumas, their childhoods and their families. When real life gets adapted, it's obvious that the writers would try and manipulate you into liking the characters, but other media can do this too. Thousands of YouTube videos and articles about such figures may be using one or more of these three strategies, on purpose or unknowingly. The thing is that, after seeing so many shows and movies, after reading so many books about such characters, you subconsciously learn how to make these characters likable. Which means you don't really have to be conscious of what you're doing to be doing it. A story about a serial killer's traumatic childhood, his abuse, his family relationships, his hardships both in and out of prison will be told without the awareness that that is character victimization. But then again, I'm not saying that this should not be happening. You have to tell a complete story and make it interesting. Of course, this can be considered manipulative, but art often is. If TV shows, movies and books can use these tactics, who's to say that a YouTuber cannot try and evoke sympathy this way?
Enjoying good TV does not make you evil. Empathizing with a character whose morality is questionable doesn't either. The TV show makes you feel like he's not that bad so that you don't feel bad about feeling good when he kills people. It's all tricks by clever writers. We are constantly being tricked into liking pieces of shit, fictional or otherwise. But the thing is that we would have liked them anyway, just a lot less, because we are kind of sort of envious of people who don't feel fear or remorse or guilt. Additionally, you don't really have to understand why you like certain characters and why you empathize with them to like their shows. Personally, I believe that not knowing all the industry secrets makes for a better watching experience. There, now you know why you like fun TV shows with interesting characters, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. I am aware that it might just be me who feels this way, but in any case, this was very fun to research and put together. Hope you enjoyed it.